What's going on, you guys? It's Ariel here. Welcome back to the Gamers Respite, where we talk about gaming. We talk about gaming news. We talk about all sorts of fun topics in the industry. Today, I have with me not only a friend, but an amazing graphic designer, one who's done graphic work for one of, several of my good friends, including Danny, Paris, all the greats. Please welcome Tucker. Hazell. I feel like I should be at a wrestling WWE match with the mega microphone.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm about to barge in. I should have my music playing, and I'll do some sort of crazy pose, of course. I don't know what it is, but we can all imagine it. And that'll really get everyone excited for this exciting episode of a gaming-related podcast.
It is. Welcome on in. How are you today?
We started this early. We were going to start it earlier, and then we both were like, "Hey, we're still in bed. Let's take a little bit longer. We're a little bit tired." A little bit all over the place. You know, you blowing your nose. It's one of those mornings. But if there's anything
It is.
that brings some energy to my life, it's talking about whatever nonsense I happen to be super excited about. And today, that is graphic design, that is video games, that is getting to chat with you for the first time. And so, no, I am tired. I honestly did not sleep that much last night, and I just got out of bed just a little bit ago. But I feel great. I can't wait to do this.
I know. I'm excited. I mean, hell, my face might be ridden with allergies, but you know what? Let's go. Let's do this. Let's bring it on. I'm ready.
Absolutely.
So it's really interesting because whenever we first discussed about doing a podcast, at first I was like, this month is kind of crazy. Can we push it to next month? But then I realized, oh my God, it's actually I have a free few days in this week. Let's do this.
Perfect.
So I love whenever we get the
The
chance
clouds
to just...
parted. And it allowed me to come in.
It honestly is. It allowed me to actually sign up a few days for podcasts. Am I going to be even more tired? Yes, it's going to be worth it though. So
yes, absolutely.
But the first thing we're going to dive into is what you've been playing. What have you been playing lately?
Let's see. Well, I actually just got back from a trip to New York. I got to play Nintendo Switch 2, and so no humble bragging. But I wasn't really able to play too much while I was traveling. So there was just a solid week where it was just I had my Switch. I was playing a little bit on trains, but when I got back, I tried to do sort of a speed run catch up on a couple of games that had come out that I was wanted to make sure I had a little bit of hands-on experience with. So I tried Atom Fall. I got a code for a game that isn't quite out yet. I think the embargo is 2 days actually. When does this go up? Can I mention a game that's...
This is going to be going up next week on Wednesday.
Oh, okay, great. So I got the code for Lush Foil Photography Sim, which is a really cool looking photography simulation game that's made by one guy. It's one of the highest fidelity games I've ever seen. So that's a cool thing to be exploring. Then I played this South of Midnight. And over the last couple days, I started Blueprints, which came out yesterday, and I've been playing Schedule 1 with my brother. I streamed that game for 6.5 hours yesterday. I did not plan to play it for 6.5 hours, but we did. We played it basically the entire day, and so I've been playing a ton of new, very diverse, small, big, interesting games, and so I've had a really satisfying and thorough week of game playing.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. That sounds so much fun. And Blueprint, I've seen the stuff for it. It looks absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm 2 hours in. I played 2 hours yesterday, and I'm a notes taking guy. And so this is definitely the kind of game that appeals to me. I'm just going to quickly pull up my Blueprints notes. I've got a section for characters here. I've got a section for the rules of the parlor game. I've got a section for, what is that? Stuff I need to keep in mind, items in the shop, how much they cost, mysteries I'm going to need to solve. So this is only in 2 hours. I've just written down all of this. So I'm really excited to sort of really thoroughly explore the game. But I don't really get it yet. I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I'm still finding my footing, but I know it's a game that should really, really appeal to me. And I have enjoyed my first 2 hours because I'm also a walking sim guy, so it's an infinite walking sim, which is kind of cool. But I don't quite get it yet, but it's growing on me, I think.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, it's funny because the meme of that of Death Stranding popped into my head as soon as I heard walking sim, because everyone's just like, it's a walking sim. It's like, no, it's not.
No,
but
no. I beat that game earlier this year to prepare for Death Stranding 2. I'm not a Kojima guy. I'm not a Kojima girly. I don't know. I thought that it was fine. I think it's impressive and interesting in certain ways, But I unfortunately think Kojima's a little bit up his own butt, and so it's just like it doesn't really gel with me. Like I'm very much a narrative person, and that game has a narrative, but it's very convoluted and I think a little bit obnoxious. So I'm excited for two because it looks like it's leaning a little bit more into its own goofiness, and it looks like there's a wider set of characters who are like more interactive or active in the story. But yeah, I thought Death Stranding was okay. I thought it was okay, but I really do not get the hype personally.
It's very interesting. I'll share my personal experience that I have with it with you because as I stare at my Death Stranding poster right over here.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So for me, I'm like a big. It's one of my favorite games.
yeah.
But I understand why people like yourself don't jive with it a lot of the
Hmm.
time. There is a lot of not. I wouldn't say personally convoluted, but mixed messaging whenever it comes to some of the psychology or some of the
Sure.
story points that line up, especially like with connecting the entirety of America,
Hmm.
which Kojima, I see you. Thank you so much for that. That was a
Hmm.
subtle, a subtle thing to us. But also, for me, I look for a lot of psychology in the games, and
Sure.
the beaches for me was really interesting. Of where like
Interesting. Yeah.
everyone has their own beach, like everyone has their own afterlife.
Sure.
So I thought that that was a fascinating point, but I can understand how people don't drive with it, especially like with how long chapter 3 is. Like
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
that was a
It's
beast.
yeah, it's also a weirdly paced game because it kind of snowballs, right? Like once you hit like 7 hours into the game, it is if you're playing the core missions, it is go, 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 and you're not unlocking new maps like you were in the first chunk of the game, and so you're doing a lot of backtracking and exploring of similar areas, and then the game also then slows to a crawl at the very end because of the last few chapters you have to go through the entire game again, and I was like, what? What this is? It's just a bizarre pacing choice, and I find it. I have a lot of respect for the game, but at a certain point, I was like, I and it's just because I was not a massive fan. I'm like, I just want to get this over with, man. I just want to get this over
At that
with.
point, whenever Sam and spoilers, by the way, sorry.
Yeah,
At that point, whenever Sam is just like, I have to go back and do.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You realize how long this is taking. I
Hmm.
felt that to my core.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
But I feel like the use of Norma Reedus within the game was kind of, for me at least, I think it's because they didn't get to use him in PT Silent Hills, so they reutilized him as a
yeah. Of
character
course.
for
Hmm.
this concept game, and I feel like for his for his character and for the narrative that he is portraying, it reminded me so much of The Walking Dead
Mm.
because unfortunately I think what happens with a lot of actors is that they become typecast into a
Yeah,
certain role. So when
sure.
I saw him, I was like, "Oh, Walking Dead! Oh my gosh!" But I feel like it's so cool that he got to do this kind of role because he branched out into something that I don't think he
Sure.
would have played otherwise, or maybe I'm just
Yeah.
assuming. So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
so, but yeah, some of the games that I've been getting into recently, which I actually just started recording a playthrough for Dragon Age Inquisition's a DLC Trespasser.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, it's a pretty interesting game. I mean, that the first part of the game broke my heart. For anyone who hasn't played it, I would highly recommend it. It's a
Yeah.
fantastic game. If you romance Solus, prepare to get your heart broken every which way to
Uh-oh.
Paris.
Okay.
It's kind of like romancing Astarion, except this one hurts more.
Sure.
So, but yeah, I'm doing that DLC. I'm also playing through Mass Effect 1 for the first time.
Okay. All right.
I've never played any of the Mass Effect games before, and so
Yeah.
far I'm enjoying it. And yeah, that's actually currently what I'm playing. Normally, I'm playing more games than that, but I just got through a bunch of like stuff to do for IGN and everything
Yeah.
like that. So for me, it's just kind of like more of a relaxed period,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, kind of thing.
Well, no, definitely. I understand that. Like the idea of wanting to decompress and choose something that you don't need to play or isn't, frankly, imminently relevant. Inquisition's DLC, frankly, never heard anyone talk about it. I mean, that doesn't bother me. It's not a bad thing. But like, I understand the drive to be like, what is no one talking about? What kind of world can I like sequester myself in that isn't like all over the internet right now? And I'll do that myself as well. Just like jumping into something totally random, like something I like. Let's see. What's an example of that I played this year? Oh, I started playing Daikatana, the John Romero game that is like notoriously one of the worst games ever. I just like bought it for like 97 cents on GOG, and I started playing it, and I was like, the first few hours actually aren't as bad as I thought they were going to be, but like that's the kind of game that like I haven't really heard anyone talk about it, and I just wanted to kind of put aside what everyone else was thinking about and talking about, and be like, what kind of thing can I like find for myself right now? And so with Mass Effect One, again, just another good example of like, I mean, people like Mass Effect One, but it's not like something people are clamoring about right now. Find something that you can find your own world in, and so I definitely understand that drive.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's been so refreshing just to like not like even though I am going to be reviewing these on my channel, it's not something that's immediate for work, or it's not something that's
Yeah.
immediate that I have to do. So I can really take my time and go through the
Yeah.
world and just sink my teeth into it, which is nice.
100%.
So to get into some of our main topics, because this is the meat of why we're here, is some of the graphic design. And I've been I used PicMonkey for the majority of what I use for my graphic
Is that
design.
a website? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it is. You could use it like it's a free to use one,
Okay.
but it's also something of where like you can pay like a price for anything like
Sure.
that. But it's really, I wanted to know what you use as your main like tool for graphic design, and we can talk about how we get into the graphic design,
Yeah.
what our history is with it, and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, so I was given access to the Adobe Creative Cloud via my college a few years ago, and that's what I ended up sort of adapting to, because I had Photoshop and Premiere and Audition and all of that, and so then eventually when I graduated college and I no longer was given access for free by the school, I was lucky enough to be able to find a job that will help provide pay for part of my Adobe Creative Cloud, and so Photoshop is what I use. I've got a friend who also makes thumbnails for my channel, who uses an app, I guess, called GIMP. I've never used GIMP,
oh,
but it's
nice.
very similar to Photoshop. And so if you're looking for a free alternative to Photoshop, GIMP, it works for him. He's been using it for years. So that's and options where you don't have to pay hundreds of dollars a year for the Adobe Creative Cloud. But it also gives me access to editing software for my video and audio and motion graphics and things like that. So I like the entire Adobe package, but it's definitely an investment, and you have to use it a lot to get your money's worth, which I do. But I do use Photoshop, and I use Photoshop so much. I mean, I probably have close to 1,000 Photoshop files just on my computer. Fun things that I've just been screwing around with, little memes I've made of my friends, and of course, lots and lots and lots of thumbnails, which is kind of the main thing that you and I wanted to talk about, is because we were just kind of going back and forth about graphic design and tips, and how a lot of people that are in our circles have their own channels, make their own videos, but graphic design is the one element that most people have the least experience with, I find. And so there's a lot of people that make very good content, but then you look at their channels and it's like, man, you could spice that up a little bit more. And of course, it's not easy. It's not easy at all. And so I get that it's not something you really have to do, repeat it a lot and try a lot of things to find out what works for you. But hopefully, if you're listening to this and you are someone who has your own channel and are interested in advancing your graphic design game just a little bit, we thought a little about the tips that we have for our graphic design, so maybe we'll provide a little bit of insight.
Exactly. And it's interesting because like I've been doing thumbnails for the past 9 years, and
Holy moly.
it's
Yeah.
it's one of those things of where like you accumulate thousands of them
Yep.
over a period of time. Like I've done what, over I think 2,000 videos at this point. So it's interesting of where like I looked in preparation for this podcast, actually I looked at what my first thumbnail was, and it's gonna be kind of pixely, but you guys will see it up here. I'll send it to you after the podcast so you can
Sounds
see
good.
it. And Five Nights at Freddy's 4 was the first game I ever played on my channel
Oh, okay.
back in 2016.
Yeah.
So I thought, you know what, this will be fun. I put slap some glasses on top of Freddy, give him some sunnies, some aviators, and it looks just fancy. And in comparison to now, my most recent thumbnail, it's really interesting how they just say, yeah, practice makes perfect, because you're continuously doing something, you're continuously perfecting a craft that you are spending hours upon hours doing. Like I think it took me 2.5 hours to do my first thumbnail.
The one with the glasses?
Yeah, because I was trying to figure out like, well, how do I erase the background and how do I do all
Oh,
of this?
sure.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do any of that back then. I didn't even know how to put like images inside videos until like
Yeah.
a certain point,
Yeah.
So,
I remember when before I knew how video editing worked, I would watch videos and I would see like crossfade transitions and see text pop up and stuff. I'm like, how do you even do that? Like I guess I understood internally the idea of taking out a chunk of a thing to like smash together two separate cuts, but I'm like, how do you get the picture in there? That doesn't make any sense. Well, a picture's a picture, a video's a video. Those don't go together. But obviously, I know now how layering works and how transitions work in Premiere, which is what I use. But I remember those thoughts of like I don't even like I couldn't even fathom how it worked. But now, of course, I've done a lot of
oh
it.
yeah, yeah. No, it's so interesting how it's like you see it and it's kind of like the elusive like rabbit in the hat. You don't really know how it's done until like you're like, oh, okay, there's a trap door underneath, you know.
Yeah.
So one of the ones I actually wanted to dive into is some tips and tricks for beginners in graphic design, and even if you want to go into video editing, we can do that as well.
Yeah.
But I'll go into mine next. But I want to hear yours first of what you think newcomers should know about getting into graphic design and how to really amp up your thumbnail game.
Yeah, so I was writing some notes as I was looking at my personal favorite thumbnails that I made. I'm like, okay, what about these makes me prefer them over the many, many other thumbnails that I'm happy I made, but not quite as proud of? And that's actually tip number one, is don't be frustrated if not every thumbnail is great. It's fine. Just get it out there. Honestly, as we were mentioning, repetition and practice is the most important part of the graphic design process. Is internalizing the elements that at first seem intimidating, that you don't quite understand at first. And if you're cutting out an image and the edges are a little bit jaggy, if you can't quite figure out how layering works or the color looks a little bit off, put it out there. It's fine. You will figure it out over time. It will not be great at first. And so even me, I mean, I make almost a dozen thumbnails a week for myself, for other people, and because I do two very active YouTube channels myself. And I'll put out a thumbnail sometimes, like if I have to get it done really quick, and I'm like, this is not my best work. But I then look at all the other stuff I've done. I'm like, it's fine. This is serviceable. I will move on. I will make better stuff in the future. I will learn from what I've done that I didn't like. And so don't being a perfectionist on your thumbnail game, I think, is a death sentence because making content and making graphics is very much about continuing to do it and continuing to do it and just building up that confidence over time. And so, tip number one is be okay if you put out a thumbnail that's not what you think is your best work.
Yeah, I agree. Just 100% because there are thumbnails that I've done that were okay. They were good for what I was going for, but they weren't exactly what I wanted. Like, I typically have a very grandiose picture of how I
Yeah,
want the thumbnails to turn out. Also, I see Kitty. Hi, Kitty.
yeah. He's probably gonna come over here. Here's what he does. He'll probably come over here. Here he comes. He'll reach up and he'll like tap me on the shoulder with his paw. Let's see if he
Be
does it.
like, be like, hello, father. I want treats.
Yeah.
So,
Continue.
but yes, what I'll typically do, well, one of my first tips actually is if you see that you're having issues with the thumbnail, don't be frustrated with yourself. Just take a break and see if that same vision is still applicable when you come back. Because odds
Sure.
are you're going to think of like different things you want applied to it, or you're going to mull over for a couple of days if you have like, a spare time with the video. If you're doing this for a hobby and you want to upgrade like your thumbnail game and everything, take a few days to understand
Sure.
what your vision is with your thumbnails, because your thumbnails are basically the thing that people are going to see first besides the title.
Yeah.
So they're going to see that and they're going to be like, oh, this is my first impression of this YouTuber. How do you want to come across? And, that kind of links into another tip that I have is that representing yourself in the most accurate way that you can is very
Sure.
important.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing that I have found interesting about my evolution of my graphic design process for my thumbnails is where I end up choosing to take inspiration from others of other thumbnails that I really do like, and which ones I don't. And the the truth of the matter is, I'm offering you a lot of tips today that I think people can take and use more broadly. But the kind of thumbnails I make are not, frankly, they're not the kind that a lot of people like to click on. I know this sounds really dumb, but like you look at channels that do so many views, biggest channels. There's a lot of very clickbaity stuff. There's a lot of big reactions and faces, big yellow block lettering, and obviously that works. And there's an appeal to that mass audiences really enjoy. But that's one element that I've always looked at and thought, I don't want to be a part of that crowd. I don't want my stuff to look exactly like everyone else does. And so, if you're looking to match your style to the, I'll use clickbait, but not necessarily in an insulting way, style that many massively popular channels have, go for that. But again, matching your style to, as you're saying, what represents you and represents the kind of style that you want your brand to look like, I think is more important than anything else. And I don't want to make stuff that looks like a Mr. Beast thumbnail. I want to make something that looks like a me thumbnail. And so I choose elements to leave and choose elements to take from the ones that inspire me.
Exactly. And, it's interesting, too, because anytime that I see someone's thumbnail or kitty or a video and they try to overkill with either the explosions or the huge text or anything like that, and it's like, you don't have to overcompensate. You kind of just got to look within your niche and look within what your audience looks at a lot of the time. Like for me, it's reviews and Souls-like content on my main channel. So I have to see, like, okay, how is, Fighting Cowboy doing his thumbnails? How is, a lot of different Souls-like creators doing their thumbnails? And I take bits and pieces of inspiration from kind of what I see there and apply it into something. Now, I have to bring this up because it's very important. Inspiration is different from copying. Do not copy another person's thumbnails, please. Do not do it. I've had that happen to me before years ago.
Really?
Don't do it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Like one of my friends at the time was very much like utilizing thumbnails from Markiplier, utilizing thumbnails that he saw me do, and would just straight up copy them.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I would just say that just as much as you love someone's thumbnails, just let it inspire you to make your own, but don't ever copy another artist or anything like that. So that's one of my biggest tips. Do you have others that you want to get into or anything? Because I mean, mine are just very sporadic and very just like, this is what I have to mention.
Well, I'm going to do some specific sort of quick ones, and you can tell me how these sort of hit you. Number one is in terms of text on your thumbnails. Less is more. I would say 4 to 5 words is the maximum you want on your thumbnail. And frankly, 1 or 2 or 3 is even better. Because what you have to remember, and I think what people kind of take for granted, is you're editing your thumbnail. You're on Photoshop, you're on whatever service, you're on your big screen. It's filling your whole screen. You can see the nitty-gritty details. You can see how things are layered. But 90% of the people that are going to click on this will never see it in a big enough form factor to really be able to pay attention on that granular level. So what you want, what I think works much better for thumbnails is very clear, large, very readable things. And so 1 or 2 or 3 words of text, I think, is ideal, because no matter what size the thumbnail is, someone's going to be able to understand the energy or topic of the video just by seeing those few words. And so the moment you have like a full sentence worth of text, or like a question in the thumbnail, I think it starts to erode its clickability, because maybe not everyone is going to be able to read that if it's like, the size of a mini Cheez-It on their phone.
And that's the thing too, of where like I even find myself falling into that mistake as well with sometimes, because I'm like, oh, I want to get this information on there, or I want to be able to make people aware of that. But it is that's why
what
it's called
the title is for.
Exactly.
That's what the text does. Yeah. And then also in terms of images, another thing is not necessarily less images is better, but like if you can choose 1 or 2 core pictures, whether it's yourself or a character or a screenshot from a game that you're talking about, and make that a large visible presence in the thumbnail, that's going to be a lot easier to visually read. Again, it's more than likely going to be very small for people. And so the moment you start adding a lot of complex characters or background layers or colors, it becomes a little bit more visually cluttered. And so you want one thing to be what's grabbing people's vision, right? Is one big image, one or two big images, and then a couple words of text, that's going to be all, frankly, that people need to process what your video is about. So the moment you start adding more, you're kind of just wasting your own time, right? Because then you have to balance how these things are layered, and you have to worry about just the overall composition. But if you limit yourself to just a set of a few images in letter, or not letters, words, then you're not working with a ton that won't actually end up being useful to the final project or the readability of the thing that you're creating.
Exactly. And also just to note throughout some of these segments, you guys are going to see overlaid some of our thumbnails that we, are going to pick. So if and that's the thing too of where like I want to show you guys variants of what different YouTubers might look like, even though we apply the same tactics and we apply the same things. Very different thumbnail work,
Of course,
because I
absolutely.
remember we had a discussion over Discord of like sharing what one another's thumbnails look like, and I tend to, if I really want to be creative, and this is something else that we can talk about as well, I put myself in a lot of my thumbnails to try to
Absolutely.
make it
Lots of people
creative,
do.
and I love whenever I see like others put themselves in thumbnails as well, because it adds like such a level of immersion to the content, and I think that that's so cool.
Yeah. Sure, yeah. And here's my thing about my face on thumbnails. I've put my face on hundreds upon hundreds of thumbnails. Um, but just for myself, I usually try to do it in some sort of more visually creative way. And I actually think that you follow a similar concept with some of the thumbnails that you thought were your favorites that you sent to me that I assume people are going to be seeing here. Is I like putting myself in scenarios, right? I'm like, what if I was this character, and so then I Photoshop my face into, like, their hair is around my face, or my head is coming out of their suit or their body or whatever it is, or I color match myself to the color value of the background, right? So it looks like I'm kind of in this environment, and that's my main. That's what I usually do when I'm including myself, though. It again also kind of depends on what kind of content you're making, especially if you're doing a reaction. Faces are very, very key, and so I don't bother with like trying to make it spicy or interesting when I'm doing a clip of my Nintendo Direct reaction. I pick my craziest face that I made while watching the thing, and I put that on the thumbnail because you're looking for my reaction to the content. And so I don't bother trying to not make it Mr. Beastie or whatever, because I'm like, no, that's actually representative of what the video is like, so I'm okay with it being like me going, because I do that when I'm watching something that I'm excited about.
What's interesting, what just happened is the camera just froze on your face like that for like a millisecond.
Well, hey, how about that?
And now it's fine. I love whenever some YouTubers will leave in like bloopers of just like thumbnail prep.
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, I didn't want my camera to start tracking. Damn it.
Wait, what did you do? What's happening?
My camera has like a tracking thing in it if I put my hand up a certain way.
Oh, it doesn't seem to be doing a very good job, to be completely honest. Why are you on the side? It's tracking you like right justified. Or left justified, I guess.
Yeah. To continue on, besides the camera weirdness that's happening, so as some of the last points that I want to get into thumbnails before we get into like specifics on graphic design and how like we can improve thumbnails based on taste or style or anything like that, what are some last tips that you have for people in terms of like technicalities, if you will?
Here's one thing that I think everyone needs to know. That is a little bit hard to understand at first, but it makes so much sense when you think about it. Make sure your text is on the left side of your thumbnail, because, or center or left, because on the right side, in many cases, the bottom right corner is going to be covered by the time code of how long your video is. And so if you have important information in the bottom right corner, you're not going to be able to read it. You're not going to be able to see it. People aren't going to be able to like intake that as part of the information, because actually, frankly, more important information, which is the length of your video, is going to be covering a chunk of the bottom right corner of your thumbnail. And so that took me a while to understand. Is like, don't put your face in the bottom right corner. Don't put important text in the bottom right corner. Have it in the middle or have it on the left, because it's not going to be covered by the time code.
I agree. And also, I just thought of this actually, color correcting, please. If you want to have a thumbnail even stand out more, do the color correcting in accordance to the game that you're playing, the item that you're showing off,
Yeah.
or whatever your kind of color style is. So for me, it's like I love sage green, and that's kind of what the color of my channel is.
Sure.
So I try to like base certain hints of color that are in the thumbnails around that. Now, I don't know how certain, channels do it of where they only have like one base aesthetic color for the
Sure.
entire channel, but that's cool
Mhm.
that they could do that because that's their style. For me, it's like lately a lot of what my thumbnails are is like I will take the text and I'll hide it behind the character. That way the character pops
Yeah.
out a little bit
Yeah.
more, or I
Love
have
that.
my face with it. Yeah. So it's like different things that you can do with it, but color correcting in accordance to the game that you're playing or
Yeah.
like the piece of tech. Like for the Nintendo Switch, for example, you're probably going to be doing like things that are more like red and blue color oriented with the thumbnails, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yes.
the idea of having an internally coherent color palette, I think, is something that's really key because then it makes it feel like one cohesive image, right? Here's one tip that I often use is base the color, as you're saying, around your one key image. You choose your character, you choose your screenshot from your game, or if it's yourself, that's also fine. And then when you add text, you use the eyedropper tool. Literally just choose colors that are from the image that you're basing it around, and then it's going to make it feel like that text matches that image because it has similar color values, and it'll immediately make it feel so much more cohesive. Again, I'm not a fan of big yellow block lettering that stands apart from everything else because I think it feels a lot less internally cohesive. It just feels like you're stacking different random things on top of one another. But the moment that things have a similar color value to them, you're like, this kind of fits together. This kind of makes sense. And then another element of that, I think, is another thing that a lot of other people should use that I'm a big fan of is download fonts. Go to fontspace.com, go to defont.com. There's all these free font websites. Download fonts. It's quick and you can just select them from your drop down of whatever you're using. Um, and that'll immediately make your thumbnails feel a lot more internally coherent. So I'm very much a fan of if I'm talking about a game or a film or whatever, I like to look up see if the font of the logo is available online or something similar to it. And so then any other words that I'm using will match the visual style of that, right? If I'm doing something about Doom, we all know those big Doom letters that have the thick angles on them and like the like plunging ends of the letters. If you download a Doom font, you just look up Doom logo font. Download the first one. I'm sure it'll be fine. And you're making a Doom thumbnail. No matter what text you have, it's going to feel like that's a Doom thumbnail. Even if the text doesn't say Doom, everyone's internalized that Doom font. And so you're looking at an image of the Doom Slayer and you're looking at, review in giant Doom letters. It's going to feel a lot better than if it's Impact Font or Comic Sans or whatever. Because it's going to be like, no, this is Doom.
Yeah, it's the same thing goes for like, Elden Ring or like even
Yeah.
Evanescence font or something like that,
Hmm.
It's one of those cool aspects of where it just adds more to the immersion of the product that you are selling.
Sure.
And, a lot of people I think like to stray away from this, but I think it's so important to mention is that you are marketing yourself as a content creator. You are your own marketer, your own producer, your own video editor, your own everything. So you have to really put the time and effort into like, okay, if I were paying someone to do this, what kind of product would I want as the end result?
Hmm.
So you have to
Yeah.
go in with that mentality, I believe. And it's like for me,
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm very business oriented at the end of the day. So whenever I look at my content now, I'm like, okay, in the amount of budget that I have and in the like the what time and space allows me to do in the present moment, what am I going to do to make this product the best it can be for someone else, not just myself?
Interesting. Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
haven't really thought about it in that way before. But as someone who does make thumbnails for other people, it's very much my psychology when I'm making something for someone else is try to put my desires and my sensibilities to the side and match what they're going for. That's definitely a challenge you will have to adapt to if you're doing graphics for someone else. Because the style of thumbnails that I make for, as you mentioned, Danny Pena and Paris Lily, are not the kind of thumbnails I would make for myself. But I wanted to match their visual style, and I wanted to have their faces on it if they wanted to. And so then you also have to think for yourself, as you're saying, like if someone else was making it for you, how would you like? You have to kind of see yourself in two different roles, and so that definitely makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So to bridge into more of like the creative side of thumbnails, whenever we're putting like different assets into our thumbnails and different pictures and everything like that,
Hmm.
one of the biggest pieces of advice I have for people is that if you are manually erasing your background, please feather it out. Please, please feather it out that way it does not look like a harsh line that
Sure.
you just erased. Because I see so many times of where people, including myself sometimes, like I look back at my older thumbnails and I'm like, oh, there's like a blob of like the background still there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I always say just feather out the background, or if you're using oh my god, if you're using the massive eraser tool, use that as kind of the featherer, because what I found, especially on PicMonkey, if you maximize it to like the fullest thing that it has, of where like, oh wow, you have like a massive circle as an eraser now, you can almost use that as a feathering out tool and then like put back in things that were originally in the picture, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
While you still
Yeah,
have like the background erased, but a little bit feathered.
sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. Yeah. One thing that I do quite a bit is because I do a lot of cutouts of either myself or characters, whether that's actors from movies or game characters or whatever, is um, I'll especially do extra feathering around hair because hair doesn't just stop. It has those little frizzy bits, and there's a little bit of I don't know, like natural gradient to the way that your hair like ends, I guess. And so if you have someone's hair and it's like cut in a block around, like it's a really sharp edge, it's going to be a lot more apparent than if you just make that edge a little bit soft. It's going to feel a lot more like that's just a picture of someone's actual hair, even if it was you actually cutting it out. I don't know. It's a tip that I picked up like not too long ago, but I'm like, it looks a lot better.
Oh yeah, it really does. And that's something like through trial and error, keep in mind actually, like that's something else I want to bring up. Like through trial and error, you guys are going to find your editing style and the way that you want your preferenced thumbnails to be. So like practice is key with a lot of it. I know that we said it before and I'm about to sneeze.
The allergies are taking over. Uh-oh. It's gonna be okay, everyone. Batten down your hatches. How'd your kids? How'd your wives?
I'm
Ah,
like,
there it is.
I just dabbed, okay. Achoo, dab, okay. I don't know why I just did that. Was so like early 2000s of me. Oh my god. But when just practice makes perfect. And the thing is that the main takeaway I want you guys to get from this, from both of us, is that we've spent years like
Yeah.
not perfecting what we're doing, but improving upon
Yeah,
our
absolutely.
craft.
Hmm.
And it's one of the things of where like you look at thumbnails like Mr. Beast, you look at thumbnails like Markiplier and all these guys, and you think like, whoa, I could never like be on that level. You get kind of like this imposter syndrome in a way. But I swear to you, like they spend so much time
Yeah.
doing what they're doing that at this point it takes them 20 minutes to do something that they would have done in like 2 hours.
100%.
You
Yeah,
know?
and that's the thing is again the learning from it. It absolutely gets so much easier the more you do it. Again, when I started doing graphic design work for Danny Pena for his podcast and his YouTube channel, I just saw that his channel didn't have any thumbnails on it, and I was like, ooh, if I can do this for him, it's going to make his stuff look a lot more visually appealing. I think it's going to get a lot more clicks on it. And so I just whipped up a, a sample thing and I cold emailed him. I've never talked to him before, and I just sent it to him. And before he even like replied to me, he'd already put it up on his channel. And I was like, what? Like that was my crappy version. That was like the one that I was sending as like a test before you gave me all your feedback. But again, it's because for him, who's not a graphic design person, that's totally fine. He has experience in a lot of other areas. He doesn't know how to do it. Like he doesn't understand the process that goes into it. So be a lot more time consuming for him. But for me, I'm able to, because of all my experience, slap things together and it's good enough quality for him. I mean, I'm proud of the ones that I make for him, but I was like completely shocked that like what I saw as like my kind of lower quality version, he was already incredibly happy with because remember we were saying about video editing and it's like seeming like wizardry or whatever. If you don't understand, it's going to be intimidating. It's going to take you a lot more time. But I feel proud of my skills in that I've internalized so much that I've learned over the years from all my mistakes, where I'm able to just quickly put things together. And I don't know, I find it very satisfying.
And that's so cool though. Like, Danny Pena and Paris Lilly are some of like the best people in the industry, and they're
Mhm.
so humble about what they do. Like whenever, like, that doesn't surprise me that he automatically used it, because like he absolutely loves when people give him ideas or give him like not
Yeah.
only inspiration but like are a community and help one another to reach like other people's potential goals. So and reaching their own potential within, which I think is really really awesome. Like he's very much like not just family oriented for his own family but within the community, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like that's really cool. And just awesome that you got to work with them, and that's actually how we got to follow one another on social media, because I remember
Yeah.
commenting, I was just like, wow, these thumbnails look awesome. And
Thank you.
then
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then we just started talking and everything, which I think is so cool, because it's like while social media has its hiccups, it
Yeah.
brings a lot of really awesome people together, and I think that that's the
Absolutely.
blessing of it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but one other thing that I wanted to get into with thumbnails is
Okay.
what our favorite thumbnails are that we've done. And I know we talked about it in Discord before,
Hmm.
but I think
Hmm.
it might be cool for people to see what our
Yeah.
like top thumbnail picks are for ourselves.
Sure. Uh, I'm gonna start in a weird place. My favorite thumbnail that I've ever done, and I sent it to you, and then you can display it here if you're in your editing process, is my thumbnail that I made for my Life is Strange double exposure review. It's got Max Caulfield in center. I cut her out. I gave her a little bit of a drop shadow separate from the background. There's a little bit of red glow around her that matches sort of the reddish purple glow of what that game kind of has going on color palette wise. And then I edited the Life is Strange logo to say "Game is weird," because it's an odd game. I really like that game. But the part about this that is why you think it's weird to start with, I never made that video. I prepped that thumbnail, and I was so proud of it. And I was supposed to review the game with a friend, and we never did it. And so this thumbnail is not on the internet. I never actually used it, but I always go back to it as one that I think is emblematic of the style that I'm going for. Right? Let's go back to a couple of these things that I mentioned. Centered text. There's nothing in the bottom right corner. Only three words. Game is weird. It's in that font, as I mentioned, the Life is Strange logo font that we all kind of recognize. And so, even if it's not saying Life is Strange, you're getting the vibe that it's Life is Strange. One central image, which is Max Caulfield in the middle. We know that character, and so your eyes sort of gravitated to it. And then the other final tip, and this is the one that I think people can most easily apply to a lot of things, is use drop shadows. A drop shadow on everything immediately makes it feel so much more like, or a stroke or a gradient. If you put a stroke, a gradient, or a drop shadow on your text, it's going to immediately feel a lot more dynamic, a lot more high production value, I guess. Because it separates things from the background. It makes things feel less compressed, less flat. And one of my like frustrating things when I look at people's thumbnails is if everything just feels like it's stuck onto one another. But the moment you put a little bit of distance from a drop shadow or a stroke, especially on like single color text, if you put a stroke around the edge, it makes it feel like it's a separate element, and so it has a little bit of layer to it and depth to it. That thumbnail I think is very cool. I'm very proud of it. It's unfortunate I never got to use it, but I mentioned all these things. That this thumbnail is definitely emblematic of a lot of those tips that I think. And that was a very hard thumbnail to make. I'm not saying this is an easy thing to do, but it worked out. And hopefully you can get some sense of what I was saying with less is more in terms of text, in terms of images, centering, using some layering, and using a internally consistent color palette. Right? Is making sure everything matches in terms of color.
Yeah, and it's so interesting that you bring that up, because I forgot to actually mention background shadows. Background shadows bring so much dynamism to
Yeah.
what a thumbnail already kind of is, and it's so cool to use that, especially like with text. It just makes everything pop so much
Yeah.
more.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one reference that I want to bring up, it's one that I still have to send you actually, of where I had two of them actually, of where one was a thumbnail that I did for a live stream, and
Okay.
it was on the road to platinuming Elden Ring.
Oh,
And
cool.
it was one of where I had the map in the background, and it was kind of blurred of the map of Elden Ring in the background. And they have that in the background. Elden Ring up top has a drop shadow. The logo is there. It's centered. But down below, actually, I have the Journey to Platinum, which I put in like a blue surrounded coloring with a white in the middle, and I think that pops really nicely on the thumbnail. And then it
Yeah.
has two of the achievements on the side for some of the platinum to get. And I think that just makes everything pop. It makes everything really. I'm really actually very proud of how I did that thumbnail. And there
Yeah.
was another one that I did. I'm actually just looking through the thumbnails currently of where it was my Shadow of the Erd Tree walkthrough that I did. I'm very
Okay.
proud of those thumbnails that I put out because I put myself in it of where I did color themes for some of the thumbnails. So one of them is purple, another one is pink, and another one is red for Mesmer. So it was, something of where like I really enjoy doing themed color palettes because those just make I feel like a lot of the thumbnails pop to a
Sure.
degree.
Yeah,
So,
I found your
yeah.
channel. I'm just taking a look at them now. Yeah, those are
Oh yeah.
definitely good. And again, you've got some drop shadowing on there, right? You're in front of the text, but you can still understand what it is. All the text is big and centered. And yeah, I think those are very good examples of what you're talking about.
So now that we've talked a lot about thumbnails, we've talked a lot about our approach to them, we talked a lot about tips and tricks on how to improve your thumbnail game. And by the way, don't be shy, leave us some of your questions in the comments
Yeah,
and
of
we
course.
will, obviously like respond to you guys. Like I'll respond if I know it. He will respond to the comments if he knows it and
Yep.
everything like that. If we don't know something, we'll just say, I don't know, but we'll link you guys to information of where you can
Sure.
get the knowledge.
Hmm.
So yeah, ask away any questions you might have about thumbnails or graphic design. One of the next things I want to get into is discussing and advocating for IPs
Ah, yes.
because it's something of where like I absolutely love the new IPs that are coming out, and I feel like it's something that you said before, which I really jive with, of where a lot of people think that there's this heavy reliance on remakes and everything like
Mhm.
that, which we see a lot of remakes come out. I'm not going to deny that with Resident Evil,
Mhm.
with Silent Hill, with so many different kinds, but I feel like a lot of new IPs aren't getting the credit that they necessarily deserve. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so this is something that I found myself very passionate about over the course of the last couple years. Is feeling like there's a juxtaposition between the games that are available and releasing in the industry and the attitude people have towards a certain subset of games. I think like kind of overshadows their thoughts on the industry. Is when you watch a Summer Game Fest, you watch a PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo show, people come out the other side and say, "Oh man, there's no new ideas in the industry. All Microsoft does is rely on Forza Gears, Halo. All Nintendo does is rehash Pokemon and Zelda and Mario and these things." Like, of course, not denying all these series, many entries, tons of Final Fantasy games, tons of Resident Evil games. I like all these series, so I'm not insulting them because of that. But that's absolutely the case. But I think that if your mind goes to the industry is too reliant on rehashing IP, rehashing the same series over again. A lot of people use the term milking a series by making remakes and sequels and spin-offs and things. I think it's also important to then try to challenge yourself to step outside of your comfort zone and explore the worlds that are new to gaming. And even just this year, it's something that I've especially been focused on, because as people are saying, all the only thing that matters in the industry right now, or the only thing that people are putting money into is, we're on Grand Theft Auto 6, we're on like the seventh Doom game, we're looking down the barrel of the next Pokemon games and stuff, and of course Call of Duty and yearly entry games. I've also played the majority of the games that I've played this year that have come out this year have been completely new IP. And I really really like that because I think it's important to champion those games, right? If you are complaining about that, if you're complaining about the fact that there's lots of reutilized series and long running franchises, you can just not play them. I know that's a little bit dumb, but like I played just in this last month about six new IP, and I'm playing through these games very quickly. I'm not someone who's like really delving deep into these games, but I think that you could, if you really pay attention to the industry and allow yourself to try and look into new teams and new creators that you are familiar with, you can find enough new games to play every month to where you don't have to touch these series that are being quote unquote milked or have been around for a very long time. And so you just did a review of South of Midnight, which I think a lot of people, especially in our circles, would praise is not only a very cool game, but from Microsoft, from Xbox, giving Compulsion Games, the development team, the budget and the time to make an entirely new world with new thematic concepts and new characters and a new visual identity that brings some new aesthetic and cultural flavor to the games industry. And that's definitely the biggest example of the last few months. But I'll let you talk a little bit, and then we can just kind of go through some of the recent new IP games that I think, if people play them and give themselves the space to explore them, kind of alleviate that thought process or the pressure that everything is a remake or everything is a sequel nowadays.
Yeah, and the thing is like a lot of people were bringing up their thoughts on like what the next Resident Evil is going to be. And as much as I love Resident Evil, it was like Resident Evil 1 Remake was the first game I ever played as a kid. Like I loved it so much. As much as I love it, I think it's going to be time soon to close the chapter on Resident Evil because for me personally, I know this is going to come across as a hot take, but it's getting overused to the point of where I feel like Resident Evil is being more so utilized as a fan service instead of what the actual story is. The way I feel about a game on its release is going to be different than how I feel about it a year, 3 years from now.
Absolutely, 100%.
Which is completely fair. You know, a lot of Twitter might say that, oh, you're backpedaling, you're doing this. It's like, no, we're allowed to change our minds, you know? And, you know, and so that's why I kind of find it interesting of where, like, they should cap it off at 10, make it 10 games, and then say sayonara to the series. Because then at that point, you're just milking
10 games. Make it 10 games with the softest air quotes ever, because there's like 30 Resident Evil games.
I know my friend Paris actually would get a kick out of this that I'm saying this because he's just like, you don't need another Resident Evil game at all. But it's one of those funny things. We love you, Paris. Don't worry. It's one of those lovely things of where like the story itself has so much abundance that's why I hate seeing IPs kind of used and abused like that, because if you're doing something for popularity, then it doesn't really quite work out as well if it's just like a one and done game. Like for example, The Evil Within. You know, those got 2 games. The first game, absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. I did not like the second game at first, but the more I played it, I ended up just loving the second game. When it comes to a game, it's an indie game like Fran Bow. That was a one-and-done game, and it was absolutely fantastic. Like, the psychological messaging, the point-and-click style of how it was done. It's really, really well-utilized. Another one that comes to mind is, oh my gosh, I just had it in my head right now. Thymesia. Thymesia is an absolutely incredible Souls-like. Yeah, it's a Souls-like game of where you're basically playing as a plague doctor, and it is so well done. It is like so well done. I just actually got another copy of it for PC. I have one on Xbox, and it's one of those games of where like you get separate copies.
I just want to quickly mention some interesting games that have come out in the last few weeks that I feel like people haven't really given the attention that I think they deserve. First off is the new game from Landfall Games. They're the team that made Totally Accurate Battle Simulator, and last year they made Content Warning. And every year on April Fools, they put out a new game. They call it Landfall Day. They put out a new game. And their game this year is a game called Haste, which is a very, very fast movement and physics-based 3D platformer where you are barreling down a long, like, hilly track with all sorts of, like, it's basically like a 3D bullet hell game, but it's about your momentum, and you're like, for me, it's what Sonic should have always been. I'm not a Sonic fan. I've played a lot of Sonic games, but it has this really interesting sense of speed and momentum, and has this really fascinating visual style. I love the way the main character looks, and it's a game that I was able to try out and thought, wow, this is really fresh, really unique. I haven't really played anything like it, but it's a game I haven't heard people talking about in the way that they a lot of the games that people put a lot of time into this year are the next entry in a big series. Another one would be Midnight Murder Club, which is a multiplayer game that's actually published by PlayStation, but nobody is talking about it. It is this multiplayer shooter where it's completely dark and you have to use a flashlight to find everyone in this giant dark mansion. And whenever you are using the flashlight to locate other people can actually see where you are because you have a light on. And so it adds this interesting tension and risk and reward. And then it also has, much like Lethal Company or Content Warning, the proximity chat element. And so you're in a dark room and you're like whispering or saying something to your friend, and other people on the other side of the room can hear it, and they can like crouch around and like locate you based on like the 3D audio. And like, this is a game that is I think a unique idea. I think it's executed well. It's in early access, so hopefully it's still evolved, but it is completely flopping. And I think that that's unfortunate because it means that a publisher like PlayStation has less incentive to explore new ideas, to give a small team like Villain Studios, the team that made it, just the budget to make a new IP. People I feel like are of two minds, and I think they're a little bit like there's an internal juxtaposition where people talk a lot about someone like PlayStation relying too heavily on God of War and Uncharted and Last of Us and Horizon and these IP that do have a number of entries, but then they also don't give them credit where credit is due when they do end up publishing something that's original. And if nobody plays the new games and all they pay attention is the big games, then they're not going to make the new games. And so it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, where I think if we sort of walk the walk where we talk the talk and actually give these new original games a little bit more of a spotlight, at least help them bring them up to the level of the long-standing IP that people talk about quite a bit, then it kind of balances things out, and I think adds just more interesting talking points and variety to the industry.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's the thing too of where like, some of the titles that I mentioned before are older ones, I mean, not anything new that came out this year, but I feel like it's so crucial to also bring up the fact of where like sometimes people don't even go into like older games that were, just one and done type things of where they didn't get a sequel or anything like that. And, yes, we had South of Midnight that came out this year. We had Blueprints. We had, a lot of different games. I think like more recently there was one called, what is it? Cuisinart? I believe it's called. It's a battle royale style game where I just recently did a video for Windows Central, and it's very much of like the cozy game kind of thing. I have to look it up because I don't want to be wrong on this. Yeah. Cuisinier. That was it. Cuisinier. Okay. And it was basically this thing of where like, you're a cat character whose parents have left the restaurant unattended and everything, and your job is to like rebuild the restaurant. It's a very cute kind of cozy sim meshed in with a dungeon crawling. And okay. It's really fun. It's something of where like I sunk a couple of hours into it already, and it's so cute. It's really, really nice. There are a lot of games of where I feel like people don't take the time to view them because they have their comfort game, right? Like whether it be The Last of Us or God of War or or Doom or anything like that, who get these multiple entries. You see that they're not looking at these other games because of that comfort, because of that complacency. And it's not that it's a bad thing. It just becomes where like they're contradicting themselves. It's like, we want new IPs, we want new, games or anything like that. Well, it's like,
and yet you're on the 500th hour of Destiny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And again, like, there's nothing wrong with having your comfort game, but also going out of your comfort zone. Like, that's how I found out I loved Red Dead Redemption 2, was going out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I've over the last few years very much pushed myself to try games in genres and series that I don't at like surface level think that I would really like. But I give myself the space and freedom to sort of challenge myself, be like, all right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to try this. I'm going to see why people like it, see how it interacts with my taste, see what I prefer, what I can learn from it. And I've been able to find some games that I've really, really enjoyed. I'm not a fighting game person. But Street Fighter 6 comes out. My friends are interested in it. We buy Street Fighter 6, and I think that game is phenomenal. I love Street Fighter 6. It's so much fun. And just last year, I've always been super intimidated by the Yakuza series, and I was like, screw it. I just have to play one. I just have to actually do it. And I sat down, I played Yakuza 7 like a dragon, and 50 hours in like a little over a week, just completely immersed in it. And Obviously, neither of those are new IP, and so I'm going a little bit against what I was saying. But also, again, if you feel like any given studio or team is relying too heavily on one single franchise, go play a franchise you haven't played before. Then you suddenly have a new well of people you can talk to, fans that you can connect with, game design ideas, characters, lore that you can explore. Just by stepping outside of your comfort zone a little bit. And so this is kind of turned into a conversation a little bit about expanding your horizons as a gamer. I think a lot of people have complaints about the industry, which I think are valid, but I think can actually be alleviated by opening your mind to the breadth of games that are releasing, playing older games, play games that came out before you were born, right? Play games that you came out when you were a kid, and then also keep up with the new stuff and explore indie games and explore the bigger games and try some live service stuff and try some mobile games. Go on itch and find something that's like experimental and free. You can really, I think, get a lot more hope out of the industry as I have just by not focusing in on one area too hard, because I think then you're siloing yourself from the breadth of experiences and creators and interesting ideas, and as we've been saying, new IP, new worlds, new characters that do exist out there that you can go experience if you allow yourself to explore them.
Absolutely. And actually, a really cool example of that is a game I was just recently sent to review, actually called Overdose. And it's a new indie game that came out. And it's on Keymailer. And a lot of, like, I haven't seen any reviews out about it yet or anything like that. I'm going to be doing a review on it myself. But it's a concept of where you're giving patients their medication and everything. And you have to, like, it's a horror game where, like, other patients are hunting you down. And it's so cool. Like, it's done in, like, PS1 style graphics, and I absolutely, it looks so amazing. I have to dive into it actually over this weekend, which it's one of those new IPs of where it's like, I'm a psychological horror person. Like I love it so much to see that people and like new studios, especially indie studios, are creating these kinds of IPs that not only harken back to old school vibes, but have like the new school flavor. It's amazing, and I love the fact that they're doing that. There's also an IP actually I forgot to mention before. It was more so also a one and done type thing of where it's called The Longing, and it's a very well done game. It's an indie game that showcases. It takes place in real time, of where you are this kind of little servant.
I played this game. Yeah.
It's so good. Oh, but one of the endings, I have to say, trigger warning, is not for the faint of heart. It is basically of where you have multiple endings that you could go through in this game, and you play it in real time. And I thought that was such a cool concept of where you are literally waiting the days until the person wakes up. And I thought that was so interesting. But one of the endings actually that you can get in order to be free of like the loop and the cycle and everything is, again, trigger warning, to unalive yourself. And you have other endings that you can go through. Of course, there are ways to decorate your little area that you're in until while you're waiting. So it's one of those interesting concepts, more philosophical than anything, I would say, of where you're just longing for the day that you are free. And it's a really incredible concept. So there's so many, the point that at the end of the day that we're trying to make is that there's so many intriguing and interesting indie IPs, things that have come from PlayStation that a lot of people don't touch, I feel like, just because they're in their comfort zone of what they are accustomed to.
Yeah.
At least for me, I don't know what you would say about this, but getting out of your comfort zone, I think, is going to be the most beneficial thing for you as a gamer.
100%. I mean, I just mentioned getting into Yakuza, getting into Street Fighter. Those are things that have definitely helped expand my horizons and helped me find new series that I'm very excited about and interested in, and new genres as well. But for me, the thing that I mostly want to impart on people now is when you're watching a video game showcase, when you're watching Summer Game Fest or a State of Play or Nintendo Direct or something, try not to turn your brain off when it's something you don't recognize, right? I feel like a lot of people are waiting for that pop. They're waiting for the return of a series. They're waiting for a reboot. They're waiting for, oh my god, they're remaking this game that I remember from when I was a kid. And I like those as well. I get those pops as well. But I've been challenged myself to also get excited for and like make sure I'm like locked in and paying attention when there's a trailer from a team I never heard of, right? When there's an art style or a genre or something that I wouldn't necessarily immediately be interested in, but if you push yourself to pay attention to it at first, it's going to mean that you're remembering it better later down the line. Because there's a lot of these games where you're like, oh, did I see a trailer for that? Was that in the state of play? I don't know. I don't really remember that. But I think it's a mindset thing, right? If you challenge yourself to pay attention as you see it, and then follow the games as they are getting information, if they're getting new trailers, and then when they get a release date, put it on your calendar. If you a lot of people like look at a month and be like, ooh, okay, here's the 3 big games coming out. They're all from a big IP. But if you fill out your month and your calendar with the other games that are coming out as well, suddenly it becomes apparent that a lot of games are coming out that aren't in these established IP, that aren't in these established series. And just to give some games to look forward to coming up, if that's what you're interested in, I'm really excited for the new Bloober Team game called Chronos the New Dawn. That's what it's called. They made Silent Hill 2 remake last year. I thought that was phenomenal. I'm very much looking forward to a new IP from them. You've got the new PlayStation Productions game called Lost Soul Aside that is a character action game with massive flashy anime elements that one guy in China has been making for 15 years. There's a new IP from Microsoft, as we mentioned. South of Midnight just came out. You can look forward to the new sort of Telltale style game called Dispatch. That's about superheroes and their company. There's also the team that made Sifu is making a soccer game called Rematch that looks like it's adding some interesting elements to it. There's, I think, so many new interesting games coming out, and if you put them at the top of your mind, I think it helps the industry feel a lot more fresh, a lot more exciting, a lot more innovative, because you're suddenly intaking so many more new perspectives and experiences.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned those because it's like while I'm, myself am excited for like Doom the Dark Ages and, Night Rain and all those, there is games like Lost Soul Aside, Expedition 33.
Yeah.
You have, what was it, Altars, I think it was called?
The Altars, yeah, I can't wait for that.
That's, oh my god, it looks so amazing where you have different versions of yourself and you need to do an entire ship and run an entire ship. I think that's so cool. And then you have the game Hell Is Us, which looks fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah.
Oh my god. And then what was it? I know that a lot of people are really excited about Borderlands 4, but for me, I've never played any of the Borderlands games, so that's going to be a series that I might dive into as something to try out since I've never played them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's one of those things of where there's so many different things that are coming out and so many different concepts that are new in terms of IPs that I think it's so cool that, maybe this conversation might help someone pick something out that they've never tried before. That's my hope anyway.
Absolutely. Definitely hope so.
So I do want to say thank you so much, Tucker, for joining me in the podcast for the Gamers Respite. I really appreciate it. It's been so much fun talking about not only games, but graphic design and thumbnails with you.
Yeah, I've had a great time. These are topics that I'm very passionate about, and honestly, I haven't had the chance to fully explore them. So if I was repeating myself, if I was going on tangents or whatever, and something was not making a lot of sense, it's because I'm just a dude, and I'm just trying to figure this shit out.
I completely understand. No, it's same here. If I have one idea for a thumbnail, it's probably going to change 5 minutes later.
Yep, absolutely.
But again, I really appreciate you coming on. If you guys like our faces and what we do, please be sure to subscribe and hit that bell down below. I hope you guys enjoyed the content. I hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. May your coffee treat you well and life give you a nat 20. I will see you all in the next one. Bye, you guys.